The stars had never felt so peaceful to Admiral Daniel Carter as they did that evening. He stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, watching the slow dance of ships moving between planets. 40 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Assembly, and in that time, humans had spread to dozens of worlds. They were still considered a minor species, young and unimportant, but Carter did not mind. He preferred it when others underestimated his people. On the colony world of New Eden, 3,000 children were getting ready for bed at Harmony Academy. It was the largest school for human children outside of Earth, built in a valley surrounded by purple mountains and silver rivers. The children came from families who had moved to New Eden seeking a fresh start among the stars. Their laughter filled the dormitories as teachers told them to quiet down and sleep. Dr. Lisa Grant walked through the medical center in New Eden's capital city, finishing her evening rounds. Her two children, Emma and Jack, were students at Harmony Academy. She had kissed them goodbye that morning, promising to visit on the weekend. Now she checked her communicator, smiling at a message from Emma about a science project she was building far across the galaxy. In the halls of the Galactic Assembly, Senator Katie Monroe sat alone in her office. She was Earth's representative to the Assembly, a position that carried little power but demanded endless patience. The other species looked at humans the way adults looked at children playing at important things. They smiled politely and ignored whatever humans had to say. Katie had spent the last 3 weeks trying to warn the Assembly about the Valkorian Dominion. The Valkorians were a proud warrior species who had ruled their section of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They saw humanity's rapid expansion as an insult to their power. 2 months ago, a human trading ship had accidentally entered Valkorian space. The Valkorians had destroyed it without warning, killing all 30 crew members. When Katie brought this to the Assembly, they had shrugged. The Valkorians were too powerful to anger, they said. Humans should be more careful about where they flew their ships. The message was clear. Humanity did not matter enough to protect Dot in his palace on the Valkorian homeworld. High Commander Zethrak studied maps of human space. He was old for his species, his scales turning gray at the edges, but his eyes burned with the fire of a warrior. The humans disgusted him. They were soft creatures from a small world, yet they spread through the galaxy like insects. They smiled and traded and built schools for their children as if the universe was a safe place. Zethrak would teach them otherwise. He had chosen his target carefully. Not a military base or a government building, but a colony full of families. And at the heart of that colony, a school full of children. The galaxy would watch as the Valkorians crushed the humans' hope. Other species would learn what happened to those who expanded without permission. Commander Nathan Price was 28 years old and stationed at New Eden's small orbital platform. He had a crew of 40 and 3 old patrol ships that could barely outrun a cargo freighter. His job was simple: watch the space around New Eden and report anything unusual. Nothing unusual ever happened. That night, Nathan was drinking coffee and reading a book when his sensor officer shouted. The young woman's face had gone white. Nathan walked over to her screen and felt his heart stop. 12 Valkorian warships had just appeared at the edge of the system. They were moving fast, heading straight for New Eden. Nathan sent an emergency message to Admiral Carter. He ordered his 3 ships to intercept the Valkorians, knowing it was hopeless. His vessels were like insects facing giants, but they were all that stood between the enemy and 200,000 civilians on Earth. Admiral Carter received the message and immediately contacted the Galactic Assembly. He demanded help, citing the treaties that were supposed to protect member worlds. The Assembly responded with silence. No one wanted to anger the Valkorians over a minor human colony. Carter ordered every available ship to New Eden, but even at maximum speed, they would not arrive for 6 hours. Whatever was going to happen would be over long before then. Senator Katie Monroe tried one last time to convince the assembly to act. She stood before representatives of 100 species and begged them to send ships, to issue warnings, to do anything. The Dacian ambassador looked at her with something like pity. The others simply looked away. At Harmony Academy, the children slept peacefully. Some dreamed of their parents. Others dreamed of adventures among the stars. They did not know that death was falling toward them from the sky. Commander Nathan Price positioned his 3 ships in the path of the Valkorian fleet. He opened a communication channel and demanded to know their intentions. High Commander Zethrak appeared on his screen, smiling with too many teeth. "Little human," Zethrak said, "you stand in the way of destiny. Your species has grown too bold. Tonight, we will remind you of your place." Nathan's hands were steady as he replied, "These are civilians. There are children down there. Whatever quarrel you have with humanity, they have done nothing to you." Zeth laughed. "That is precisely the point." The Valkorian ships opened fire. Nathan's patrol vessels lasted less than 2 minutes. In his final moment, Nathan managed to send one last message to his family on Earth. It said only, "I love you. Remember me." Dr. Lisa Grant was walking to her car when the sky turned orange. She looked up and saw streaks of fire falling toward the city. The ground shook as explosions tore through buildings. People screamed and ran, but there was nowhere to go. Lisa's first thought was of her children. She tried to call Harmony Academy, but the communications network was already dead. She could only stand and watch as more fire fell from the sky, and pray that somehow Emma and Jack would survive. In orbit above New Eden, Valkorian ships broadcast their attack across every channel in the galaxy. They wanted the universe to see what happened to species that forgot their place. They wanted everyone to watch as they burned a human colony to Ashdod, and the galaxy did watch. They watched, and they did nothing. Admiral Daniel Carter stood frozen on his observation deck, seeing the destruction through 100 camera feeds. His hands gripped the railing until his knuckles turned white. Around him, officers wept openly. Some cursed. Some prayed. Carter did none of these things. He simply watched, and something inside him changed forever. The man who had always counseled patience and diplomacy felt those parts of himself turning to ice. In their place grew something cold and hard and absolutely certain. The galaxy had shown humanity what it truly thought of them. Soon, humanity would show the galaxy what that lesson had created. The Valkorian warships did not target the military installations first. They flew past the defense platforms and weapons depots as if they did not exist. High Commander Zethrak had given very specific orders. He wanted the civilians. He wanted the schools. Amy Sullivan was a teacher at Harmony Academy. She was 34 years old and had spent her life teaching young children to read and write. When the first explosion shook the building, she was reading a bedtime story to her class of 7-year-olds. The lights flickered and went out. Children screamed in the darkness. Amy did not panic. She gathered her students around her and led them toward the basement shelter. The building shook again and again as bombs fell nearby. Dust filled the air. Some children cried for their parents. Others were too scared to make any sound at all. They almost made it to the shelter. Amy could see the heavy door at the end of the hallway when the ceiling collapsed. She threw herself over as many children as she could reach, using her body as a shield. The last thing she heard was a little girl calling her name. When rescue workers found her 3 days later, Amy Sullivan was still holding 2 children in her arms. Her body had protected them from the falling debris. She had saved their lives with her death. Of her class of 23 students, only these 2 survived. Across the colony, similar scenes played out in horrible repetition. The Valkorians had studied human settlements carefully. They knew where the schools were. They knew where families lived. Their bombs fell with terrible precision on every place where children might be found. Captain Ryan Torres was flying a civilian transport ship when the attack began. He had been carrying supplies from the orbital station to the surface. Now he watched in horror as fire rained down on New Eden, his radio filled with screaming voices begging for help. Ryan made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He could not save everyone, but he could save someone. He flew his ship toward the burning remains of a refugee center where survivors were gathering. Valkyrian fighters tried to shoot him down, but Ryan had been a combat pilot before he retired. He dodged their attacks with skills he thought he had forgotten. He landed in a field of ash and opened his cargo doors. People ran toward him, carrying wounded friends and crying children. Ryan loaded as many as his ship could hold, then loaded more. Warning lights screamed that he was over capacity, but he did not care. He took off with 200 survivors packed into a space meant for 50 as he flew toward orbit. Ryan activated his ship's recording systems. He captured footage of the Valkyrian attack, documenting every bomb that fell on civilian targets. He recorded the destroyed schools and burning hospitals. He made sure the galaxy would see exactly what the Valkyrians had done. Dr. Lisa Grant survived the initial bombardment. She spent hours pulling wounded people from collapsed buildings, working until her hands were bloody and her voice was gone from shouting orders. She did not let herself think about Emma and Jack. She could not afford to break down while people still needed her help. When dawn came, Lisa finally made her way to Harmony Academy, or what was left of it. The beautiful buildings were gone, replaced by smoking craters and piles of rubble. Rescue teams were digging through the debris, but they moved slowly, without hope. Lisa searched for 2 days. She helped carry small bodies from the ruins, checking each face with desperate eyes. On the second night, she found them. Emma and Jack were together, holding hands, buried under what had been their dormitory. They looked peaceful, as if they were only sleeping. Lisa did not scream or cry. Something inside her simply stopped working. She sat beside her children's bodies for hours, unable to move or speak. Other parents found her there the next morning, still holding Emma's cold hand. Before the communication arrays were completely destroyed, Lisa managed to send one message to Earth. Her voice was calm and empty as she spoke. "This is Dr. Lisa Grant of New Eden. The Valkyrians have murdered our children. My Emma and Jack are dead. I am sending you their faces so you will remember them. Remember what was done to us. Remember and do not forgive." The final count was almost too terrible to speak aloud. Harmony Academy had housed 3,000 students. Only 153 survived. Across New Eden, 40,000 civilians were dead. The Valkyrians had turned a thriving colony into a graveyard at the Galactic Assembly. Representatives watched the footage that Captain Torres had recorded. Many turned away from their screens. Some wept. The Leshan ambassador Zara Vex covered her face with her hands. But when the council voted on whether to take action against the Valkyrian Dominion, the result was the same as always. The Valkyrians were too powerful. No one wanted to start a war over dead human children. Senator Katie Monroe stood before the assembly one final time. She did not shout or cry or beg. Her voice was quiet and steady, which somehow made it more frightening than any scream. "You have made your choice," she said. "You have decided that our children's lives mean nothing, that human blood can be spilled without consequence. We thank you for this lesson. We will not forget it." She walked out of the chamber without looking back. She never returned. On Earth, the footage spread across every screen and network. Billions of people watched the destruction of New Eden. They saw Amy Sullivan's body being carried from the rubble. They saw the rows of small graves being dug in the ash. They heard Lisa Grant's message, and they saw the faces of Emma and Jack. Something changed in humanity that day. The grief was overwhelming, a wave of sorrow that swept across every colony and station. But beneath the grief, something else was growing. It was not rage, not exactly. Rage was hot and wild and burned itself out quickly. This was different. This was cold and patient and absolutely focused. Admiral Daniel Carter received a communication from every colony, world within 12 hours of the attack. The message was the same from each one. What do you need from us? There were no questions about cost or risk. There was no debate about whether to respond. Every human alive knew that something had to be done. Carter locked himself in his office for 1 hour. When he emerged, his face was calm and his eyes were empty of everything except purpose. He began giving orders that would change the galaxy forever. The Valkorians celebrated their victory. High Commander Zethrak received praise from his people for teaching the humans their place. He expected crying and begging, perhaps some weak diplomatic protests. He expected the humans to learn fear. He had no idea what he had actually awakened. In the weeks that followed the massacre, the galaxy expected humanity to mourn. They expected tears and memorials, and perhaps some angry speeches that would eventually fade into acceptance. The other species had seen this pattern many times before. Weaker races suffered, grieved, and learned to accept their place. What the galaxy saw, instead, was silence. Human trade ships stopped flying. Human diplomats stopped attending meetings. Human colonies went dark, their communications reduced to essential messages only. It was as if the entire species had simply stopped talking. This silence terrified the Deshan ambassador more than any threat could have. Zaravax had studied humans for decades. She knew that they were emotional creatures who expressed their feelings openly. When they stopped expressing anything at all, it meant something fundamental had changed. She tried to warn the Galactic Council. "You do not understand what is happening," she said. "Humans do not go quiet when they accept defeat. They go quiet when they are preparing for something." The Council ignored her. The Valkorians laughed. On Earth, Admiral Daniel Carter stood in a room that officially did not exist. Around him were screens showing shipyards that had been hidden in asteroid fields and behind dead moons for 30 years. These facilities had been humanity's greatest secret, built slowly and quietly while the galaxy dismissed them as a minor species. Director Michelle Chun stood beside him. She had led human intelligence services for 15 years, and in that time, she had built a network of secrets that no alien species suspected. Now she watched the screens with cold satisfaction. "How many?" Carter asked. 500 warships ready for deployment," Chun replied. "Another 200 will be completed within 3 months, all equipped with technologies we have never revealed to the Assembly." Carter nodded slowly. Humanity had learned long ago that the galaxy was not a friendly place. While they smiled and traded and pretended to be harmless, they had been building in the shadows. Ships faster than anything the Valkorians possessed. Weapons that could cut through their strongest armor. Technology that would shock every species in the galaxy. "Begin the deployment," Carter said. "Full mobilization of all military assets." Chun hesitated. "Admiral, once we reveal what we have been building, the galaxy will never trust us again. Every species will see us as a threat." Carter turned to look at her. His eyes were empty of everything except cold purpose. "They killed our children, Director. They murdered them while the galaxy watched and did nothing. Trust is no longer something I care about." General Scott Palmer was not a patient man. He had spent his career building Earth's ground forces into the most disciplined military in human history. Now, he finally had permission to use them. He stood before 10,000 soldiers and spoke in a voice that carried across the training ground. "You have all seen what the Valkorians did to New Eden. You have seen the footage of Harmony Academy. Some of you lost family in that attack. Some of you lost friends." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "We are not going to give speeches about vengeance. We are not going to make promises about glory. We are simply going to do what needs to be done." He looked across the sea of faces. Every soldier stood perfectly still, their eyes locked on him. "From this day forward, you are the reckoning. You will be the ones who deliver justice for our dead. And when you face the Valkorians, I want you to remember something. We are not doing this because we hate them. We are doing this because they touched our children. And that is something we will never allow to happen again." Senator Katie Monroe appeared before the Galactic Assembly 1 month after the massacre. She had refused all invitations to speak until now. The chamber fell silent as she walked to the center podium, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. "You offered us your condolences," she began, her voice soft but clear. "You expressed your sympathy for our loss. Some of you even shed tears as you watched our children die." She paused, looking around the room at representatives of 100 species. "But when we asked for help, you were silent. When we begged for justice, you looked away. You taught us something valuable that day. You taught us that in this galaxy, we can only rely on ourselves." The Valkorian ambassador started to speak, but Katie continued as if he did not exist. "I am not here to threaten you or to demand apologies. I am here to thank you. You have shown us what the galaxy truly thinks of humanity. And in return, we will show you what humanity truly is." She turned and walked out of the chamber. The assembly never saw her again. In secret, Ambassador Zaravex reached out to human intelligence through hidden channels. She met with Director Chun in a location that would never be recorded. "What are you planning?" Zaravex asked. Her voice trembled slightly. Chun smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We are going to show the Valkorians that some lessons come with a price. The Council will try to stop you. They will declare you enemies of galactic peace. Let them try." Chun leaned forward. "Ambassador, I am going to give you some advice. When this begins, tell your people to stay out of our way. Anyone who stands between us and the Valkorians will be treated as an enemy. We do not want war with anyone else. But we will not be stopped." Zaravex felt cold fear run through her body. She had studied humans for decades, but she realized now that she had never truly understood them. "How long do we have?" Chun checked her timepiece. "About 6 hours." In 7 star systems simultaneously, hidden shipyard doors began to open. Ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen before emerged from the darkness. They moved in perfect formation, 500 vessels spreading across human space like a rising tide. On the Valkorian homeworld, I Commander Zethrak received reports of human mobilization. He read them with amusement. The humans had a few old patrol ships and some armed freighters. What could they possibly do against the might of the Valkorian Dominion? He would learn the answer soon enough. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the battleship Unity, the flagship of the Hidden Fleet. Around him, displays showed his forces moving into position. For 40 years, humanity had hidden its strength. They had smiled and nodded and let the galaxy believe they were weak. That time was over. "All ships report ready," his communications officer announced. Carter looked at the stars one last time. Then he gave the order that would change everything. "Begin the operation. Show them what we are." The Valkorian military base at Kethver was one of the most heavily defended positions in the galaxy. 300 warships guarded it, along with orbital weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets. For 10,000 years, no enemy had ever come close to threatening it. The human fleet arrived without warning. One moment, the space around Kethver was empty. The next moment, 70 human warships appeared as if from nowhere. The Valkorians had never seen anything move so fast. Commander Nathan Price's younger brother, Lieutenant Jig Morrison, led the first attack wave. His fighter squadron screamed toward the Valkorian defense line at speeds that should have been impossible. His nephew had died at Harmony Academy. He carried the boy's photograph in his flight suit over his heart. The Valkorians opened fire with everything they had. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy small moons. But the human ships danced through the barrage like ghosts, their movements too fast and too precise to track. The Valkorian gunners had trained for decades, but nothing had prepared them for this. Jake's voice was calm as he spoke to his squadron. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. And remember that we are better than them. We don't kill civilians. We don't bomb schools. We are here for their military and nothing else. His squadron broke through the defense line and struck the Valkorian command ships. One by one, the enemy vessels went dark as human weapons tore through their shields. The technology gap was devastating. What the Valkorians thought was advanced, the humans had surpassed decades ago. At the same moment, 6 other human fleets attacked 6 other Valkorian military installations. The coordination was perfect. Admiral Carter had planned every detail, every timing, every movement. The Valkorians could not send reinforcements anywhere because they were under attack everywhere. On the surface of a Valkorian military world, General Palmer's ground forces descended from the sky. Sergeant Lauren Blake was among the first to land. She was 42 years old and had served for 20 years. Her daughter had been a student at Harmony Academy. Lauren did not fight with anger. She fought with cold precision, the way she had been trained. Her team moved through the Valkorian command center like shadows, disabling defenses and capturing officers. They did not kill anyone who surrendered. They did not harm anyone who was not armed. This was what made the human assault so terrifying. The Valkorians had expected rage and chaos. Instead, they faced soldiers who were completely controlled, completely focused, and completely unstoppable. The humans did not scream or curse. They simply did their jobs with mechanical efficiency. Hi, Commander Zethrak received reports of disaster from across his territory. Every military base was under attack. Every defense fleet was being destroyed. In 3 hours, the humans had done more damage to the Valkorian Dominion than any enemy in 10,000 years. He tried to organize a counterattack, but his communications were jammed. Human electronic warfare had isolated his command ship completely. He could only watch as his empire's military might was taken apart piece by piece. At Kethfor, Jake Morrison's squadron found Zethrak's escort fleet trying to flee. The High Commander's personal battleship was protected by 50 loyal vessels, the elite of Valkorian military power. Jake's squadron numbered 12 fighters. All units, this is Morrison, Jake said calmly. Target the escort ships. Leave the High Commander's vessel intact. He doesn't get to die in battle. He gets to face trial. The fight lasted 7 minutes. When it was over, all 50 Valkorian escort ships were disabled or destroyed. Zethrak's battleship drifted alone in space, its engines dead, its weapons offline. Jake flew close enough to see through the bridge windows. He saw the High Commander staring out at him with disbelief in his eyes. Jake opened the communication channel. High Commander Zethrak, this is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Human Fleet. My nephew was 6 years old. His name was Tommy, and he wanted to be a pilot like me. He died at Harmony Academy because of your orders. Zethrak said nothing. I want you to know that I could kill you right now. It would be easy. But that's not why I'm here. You're going to live so you can stand trial for what you did. You're going to face justice, and the whole galaxy is going to watch. He turned his fighter away and rejoined his squadron. Across the galaxy, other species watched the war with growing terror. The Valkorians had been one of the most powerful military forces in existence. The humans were destroying them in days. No one had imagined that the quiet, smiling humans had been hiding this kind of power. Ambassador Zaravac sent urgent messages to every species in the Galactic Council. Do not interfere, she warned them. Do not send ships to help the Valkorians. Do not make any move that the humans could interpret as hostile. If you value your worlds and your people, stay out of their way. Most species listened. A few considered sending forces to stop the human advance. Those plans died quickly when they saw what human weapons could do to Valkorian warships. Admiral Carter did not take pleasure in the destruction. He watched the battle reports with the same cold expression he had worn since New Eden. Each victory brought them closer to justice, but it could not bring back the children. Nothing could bring them back. The Valkorian military command tried to surrender 3 days into the campaign. They sent messages begging for peace, offering to pay any price humanity demanded. Carter's response was simple and final. Your military may surrender. Your soldiers will be treated as prisoners of war according to our laws. But the men who planned and ordered the attack on New Eden will face human justice. There will be no negotiation on this point. Sergeant Lauren Blake led the team that captured Zethrak. She found him hiding in a bunker on his homeworld, surrounded by his personal guards. The guards threw down their weapons when they saw the human soldiers. They had heard what happened to those who resisted. Lauren stood before the High Commander and looked into his eyes. This was the creature who had ordered the death of her daughter. She could kill him right now. No one would stop her. Part of her wanted to so badly that it hurt. Instead, she put restraints on his wrists and read him his rights under human law. You're going to stand trial, she said quietly. You're going to face justice. And my daughter's face will be shown to the whole galaxy when they explain why. Zethrak finally spoke. You could have your revenge right now. Why do you take it? Lauren looked at him with something like pity. Because we're not like you. That's why we're going to win. That's why we already have. She led him away to face judgment. The trial of High Commander Zethrak was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the Valkorian leader was brought before a human court. He walked in chains, his scales dull and his eyes empty of the pride that had once defined him. The evidence against him took 3 days to present. Video footage showed Valkorian ships deliberately targeting Harmony Academy. Communications records revealed orders to focus on civilian areas, especially locations where children would be found. Military planners testified that the attack had been designed specifically to cause maximum psychological damage to humanity. The faces of the dead children were shown on screens around the courtroom. All 2,847 of them. Their names were read aloud, one by one, while the galaxy listened in silence. Emma Grant, Jack Grant, Tommy Morrison. The list went on for hours. Zethrak's defense team argued that he had been acting in the interests of his people, that the attack was a military strategy meant to prevent future conflict. The human judges listened politely and then presented evidence that the High Commander had personally selected Harmony Academy as a target because, in his own words, killing their young will break their spirits forever. On the 4th day, Zethrak was found guilty of crimes against humanity. The sentence was death. He was executed quietly, without ceremony or spectacle. There were no crowds cheering, no celebrations of victory. Admiral Carter refused to allow the execution to be broadcast. We are not putting on a show, he said. We are delivering justice. There's a difference. The 12 other commanders who had planned and approved the attack were sentenced to life imprisonment. They would spend their remaining years in a facility on a cold moon at the edge of human space, with nothing but time to think about what they had done. Senator Katie Monroe appeared before the Galactic Assembly for the last time. The chamber was completely silent as she walked to the center podium. Every representative remembered her quiet threat months ago. Now they saw what that threat had meant. "You watched our children die," Katie said, her voice steady and clear. "You offered words of sympathy while refusing to act. You taught us that in this galaxy, justice only comes to those strong enough to take it." She paused, looking around the room at faces that could not meet her eyes. "We have taken it." She let the silence stretch before continuing. "The Valkorian Dominion's military has been destroyed. Their government will be supervised by human representatives for 3 generations, until we are satisfied that they will never again threaten innocent lives. Any attempt to rebuild their military will be met with immediate response." The Valkorian ambassador started to protest, but Katie raised her hand. "You had your chance to be merciful. You chose to murder children instead. Now you will live with the consequences." She turned to address the entire assembly. "Let this be a lesson to every species in this galaxy. Humanity does not want war. We do not seek conquest. We want only to live in peace and raise our children safely. But if anyone ever again targets our young, they will face the same fate as the Valkorians. There will be no warnings. There will be no negotiations. There will only be justice." She walked out of the chamber, and no one tried to stop her. In the months that followed, humanity built the Children of Harmony Memorial on New Eden. It stood on the site where the Academy had once been, a tower of white stone reaching toward the sky. The names of every child who died were carved into its walls, along with the names of every adult who gave their lives protecting them. Amy Sullivan's name was near the top, surrounded by the names of her students. Dr. Lisa Grant attended the memorial's opening ceremony. She had not spoken publicly since sending her message to Earth on the night of the attack. Now she stood before a crowd of survivors and mourners, her face thin and pale, but her eyes clear. "My children are gone," she said quietly. "Emma and Jack will never grow up. They will never fall in love or have children of their own. That pain will never leave me." She paused, steadying herself. "But I know that their deaths were not meaningless. Because of what happened here, humanity has changed. We have built something that will protect every human child, everywhere, forever." She looked up at the memorial tower. "No child will ever again be unprotected. No enemy will ever again believe that our young are easy targets. My Emma and Jack helped build that future, and I will carry them in my heart until the day I join them." The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, but more than that, they had learned to respect them. The humans had proven that they could destroy the Valkorians entirely. They had the power to burn their worlds and end their species. Instead, they had chosen restraint. They had delivered justice instead of revenge. They had shown mercy to those who showed none to their children. Ambassador Zaravax wrote a report for the Galactic Council that was never made public. In it, she tried to explain what she had learned about humanity. "We made a terrible mistake," she wrote. "We assumed that because humans were emotional, they were weak. We assumed that their kindness meant they could not be dangerous. We were wrong. Humans are not weak because they love their children. They are strong because of it. That love gives them a resolve that we cannot match. When we threatened what they cherished most, we awakened something that should have remained asleep. Let us hope we are never foolish enough to do so again." Admiral Daniel Carter retired from military service 1 year after the war ended. He had become a hero to humanity, but he took no joy in the title. He had done what needed to be done. That was enough. On his last day in uniform, he visited the rebuilt Harmony Academy on New Eden. The new campus was beautiful, surrounded by gardens and protected by an orbital fortress that could withstand any attack. Children played in the courtyards, laughing and running as if the universe was a safe place. Carter watched them for a long time. A little girl ran past him, chasing a ball, and nearly knocked him over. She stopped to apologize, her eyes wide. "It's all right," Carter said gently. "Go play." She smiled and ran off to join her friends. Carter looked up at the sky, where human warships patrolled in silent vigilance. He thought about the children who had died here, and the children who were alive now because of what humanity had done. He thought about the price they had paid, and whether it had been worth it. Then he looked at the laughing children in the courtyard, safe and happy and free, and he knew the answer. Humanity had shown the galaxy its true power. Not the warships or the weapons or the technology they had hidden for so long. Those were just tools. Humanity's true power was the love they held for their young, and the terrible things that love could drive them to do. The galaxy would never forget that lesson, and no one would ever touch human children again.